The Science Lab Quest: Mystery of the Missing Moon Phase. Chapter 1: The Lab Door That Shouldn't Open. It was a regular Wednesday at Sunbeam Middle School. The corridors buzzed with chatter, the lunchroom echoed with laughter, and in room 4B, something unbelievable was about to happen. Andy and Grace, two best friends with big imaginations, were finishing their English science finals with Mr. Gary. The last question was about the moon's phases. But before Grace could fill in, first quarter, the lights flickered, and then a faint hum filled the room.
"Did you hear that?" Andy whispered. Suddenly the supply closet, a place nobody ever entered, swung open slowly. Glowing from the darkness was a floating eyeball. It's floating," Grace gasped. The eyeball blinked. "Greetings, Earthlings. I'm Professor Orbis. Your science final has triggered the LabQuest protocol. The moon phase is missing, and you must restore it by completing a series of challenges." Andy and Grace exchanged a look. "We're in." Chapter 1: The Lab Door That Shouldn't Open. Question 1. What was the last question on Grace's science exam? Answer: the moon's phases. Question 2. What did the floating eyeball say its name was? Answer: Professor Orbis. And question 3. Why was the LabQuest activated? Answer: because the moon's phase was missing and needed to be restored. The first challenge: the circuit maze. With a swirl of green light, Professor Orbis opened a shimmering portal into the closet. Andy and Grace stepped through and landed poof in a glowing science lab they'd never seen before. Everything was giant. Towering circuit boards on the walls, wires that slithered like snakes, and lights blinking in rhythm. "Challenge 1, said Professor Orbis, hovering beside a buzzing console. "You must rebuild a power system using the correct circuits. Choose wisely, series or parallel." Four circuit paths glowed ahead. Some flickered and fizzled, others shined brightly. The duo needed to remember their exam fast. Andy squinted at the paths. "I remember. Series circuits only work if all the parts are connected. If one fails, the whole thing goes out." Grace nodded. "Let's pick a parallel circuit for the light stations and a series circuit for the sirens." They got to work, clicking parts into place. Chapter 2: The Circuit Maze. Question 1. Which circuit works even if one part stops working? Answer: parallel circuit. Question 2. What kind of circuit did they choose for the sirens? Answer: series circuit. And question 3. What did Andy remember about the series circuit from the exam? Answer: if one part fails, the whole circuit stops working. Chapter 3. I Spy a Body Puzzle. As the circuits lit up with a click, the lab walls shifted. A new room appeared with holograms of human organs floating in the air. Brain, lungs and heart twirled like planets. "Welcome to the next challenge," Professor Orbis announced. "Place the right organ where it belongs, or else the system malfunctions." Grace laughed. "Easy. That's the brain, that's the heart, and those are the lungs. But the catch. The parts were constantly moving like a memory game, and they had only 3 tries. Grace jumped first, grabbing the heart and placing it over the chest protection. Andy followed, syncing the lungs with the ribcage hologram. Finally, they hovered the brain over a glowing blue circle on top of the mannequin. Beep, beep, boop. Correct, Orbis cheered. Chapter 3. I Spy a Body Puzzle. Question 1. Which 3 organs were floating in the room? Answer. Brain, lungs and heart. Question 2. Where did Andy and Grace place the lungs? Answer. Over the ribcage hologram. And question 3. What happened after placing the organs correctly? Answer. Professor Orbis confirmed the system was correct. Chapter 4. The Floating Planet Quiz. Suddenly the lab melted into a vast cosmic dome. Planets spun slowly in orbit above Andy and Grace's head. Stars blinked as questions echoed from the walls. Professor Orbis' voice rang out. To restore the moon's phase, complete the cosmic quiz. A golden moon hovered with gaps in its glow. Grace read the swirling words. Match each moon phase and identify the correct planets in our solar system. Eight planets shimmered, but only 4 had names. Easy, that's Mercury, Earth, Jupiter and Saturn, said Andy, pointing. The moon pulsed, then a shadow swept across its surface. Now the tricky part, Grace said. Which is first quarter and which is full moon? They remembered their exam diagrams. Grace tapped the half-lit moon. First quarter. Andy slapped a bright, round one. Full moon. The moon glowed whole. Correct, said Orbis. You've restored the moon's phase. Chapter 4. The Floating Planet Quiz. Question 1. Which planets did they identify in the quiz? Answer. Mercury, Earth, Jupiter and Saturn. Question 2. Which moon phase is a fully lit circle? Full moon. And question 3. Which moon phase is half lit? Answer. First quarter. Final chapter. Back to class, or is it? With a loud whoosh, Andy and Grace found themselves back in room 4B. The science papers sat untouched, but the glowing eyeball, gone. Mr. Gary turned from the board. All done with your final science exam, he smiled. Oh, and by the way, great job on the moon phases. They blinked at each other. How did he know? Just then Grace noticed something. A tiny glowing eyeball was now drawn at the corner of her test paper, winking. Andy grinned. Think we'll ever go back? Grace nodded. Definitely. There's always more science to explore. The end. Final chapter, back to class, or is it? Question 1. Where did Andy and Grace find themselves at the end? Answer. Back in room 4B. Question 2. What was mysteriously drawn on Grace's test paper? Answer. A glowing, winking eyeball. And question 3. What did Mr. Gary say about their work? Answer. Great job on the moon phases.